All right, well, good morning and welcome to Louisville. I'm Jacob Abrahamson. I'm a volunteer with our Louisville Lawyers chapter. We're so thrilled to be back in Louisville and back at Churchill Downs. This conference, by my count, in its 9th year. We've been at capitals and castles and racetracks, and I think it's become just a great place for our Kentucky chapters to gather, to learn, and to enjoy great Kentucky traditions together, and today will be no different. So I first wanted to say thank you to everyone from FedSoc Nationals and from local volunteers that have spent a lot of time making sure this conference is excellent. I have the honor of introducing our first speaker. I know he's a friend of many in the room and needs no introduction, so I'll be brief. Russell Coleman is our Commonwealth's 52nd Attorney General. Including his current job and prior to his current job, he spent his career dedicated to public service, serving as legal counsel to Senator Mitch McConnell, and most recently as the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Kentucky. And I hope I speak for the whole room in expressing thanks for a chief law officer that comes to work every day focused on keeping Kentuckians safe and upholding the rule of law. So please join me in thanking and welcoming Attorney General Coleman.
Now, perhaps I have not picked up much wisdom in my 2 years, almost 2 years as Attorney General. One thing I have found, though, one observation is a foolproof way to get a great, glowing introduction is to have one of your employees do it. So, Jacob, well done. Your performance review is stellar this time. And as I look around the room, it's nice I'm grateful for the applause, given that maybe 15% of this room is Attorney General staff. That also factors in a degree. Look, with all jokes aside, I want to thank Kentucky's Solicitor General, Matt Coombe, for all the work he's put into this. If you know Matt, you know his day job is a robust one. And so I can say without any hesitation, I'm grateful for the organizational work he's put in to making this happen. Events like this don't just happen on their own accord, right? It takes a tremendous amount of work. And the fact that Matt has played a role in this, I just want to pause and say this Commonwealth is blessed with the best Solicitor General in the country, hands down. So. Now, the Kentuckians that we both serve are blessed to have him in that role. Now, he's taken the role, really, it's become who he is, of being a battlefield general, defending this Commonwealth and fighting for common sense. In Kentucky's appellate courts up to the Supreme Court of the United States, that quill that sits somewhere that he hides, maybe in a safe somewhere. And the team he leads, and I look around and I see a number of them. This Commonwealth could not be protected and served by stronger advocates. You know, our traditions, our rule of law, we owe a great debt to the Solicitor General and his team. And I learned a moment ago in talking with Matt that the fact that our office, the fact that the Commonwealth has an office of the Solicitor General is a product of FedSoc. Attorney General Cameron sat in this audience a few years ago when West Virginia's Attorney General was at this podium advocating for our state to create a Solicitor General's office. I know, coupled with Judge Thapar, who has been on a mission for us to carve that out for some years. And so FedSoc not only is playing a role in growing more effective advocates, given the content that we're going to hear up here in a moment, you're playing a structural role in helping us improve. I say improvement. Look, we're a moving target. The office that I lead, those that I serve with, I hope if I have the privilege of standing here a few years from now, you're going to see that we're running faster. We're operating more effectively than we are today. We should be constantly running faster and serving you. And I want to take you back, though, for a year, not all that long ago in terms of actual calendar time, a few short months. But as we know, the people who are in this room, what we care about, talk about a world of difference that 12 months make. President Biden, of course, was in the White House. The Vice President was running around seeking the presidency. And speaking of running around, the administrative state was running amok. It was Attorney General of this Commonwealth, my colleagues and I, we found ourselves on the other side of the V from our government time and time again. I will tell you, The most common nomenclature that you would see in complaints I would read or matters we discussed was Commonwealth versus. It wasn't Commonwealth versus a regular old defendant. It was Commonwealth versus the Environmental Protection Agency over and over and over again. It was Commonwealth versus the Department of Transportation, the Department of Education. You know, Kentucky became very popular. I became, for a brief time, very popular with my colleagues, attorneys general across the country, because of the venue, because of this Commonwealth as a venue, one of common sense. You know, on our federal bench, both at the trial court and the appellate levels, we've been blessed. We're filled with the right kind of judges, women and men, who are motivated by what the law says, not their own agendas. Time and time again, we sued the Biden administration, and almost always it was with a dozen or two other attorneys general, other sovereign entities that were joining us on our side of the V. For example, the Federal Highway Administration, suing them over an absurd EV mandate in the Western District of Kentucky. The Department of Education for making a change, just a small change, small nomenclature change, from gender to gender identity. That would have totally blown up the raison d'etre of that civil rights statute. That any room I speak in, it doesn't have to be a lot of lawyers. I mention Title IX and you get a nodding response from dads of daughters that know Title IX, that know the educational and the sports opportunities that has brought their daughters. Suing to stop that change from gender to gender identity successfully, as I may add. And of course, the EPA for their nonsensical regulation of our water, our air, and our precious resources. This list, I could spend my couple of minutes with you going over and over this list of matters that we were adverse to the United States. You know, I carried around a spreadsheet, literally a spreadsheet, to help me track the number of matters that we were adverse to the United States, adverse to the Biden administration's radical agenda. But thanks to our team, and let me just foot stomp this, our constitutionally and statutorily sound judges like Judge Beaton, Judge Reeves, Judge Van Tatenhove, and many others, we made progress in our fight against this federal insanity. Then everything changed when President Trump took office. As Senator McConnell frequently says, winners make policy. What's the winners make policy and losers go home. So now it's our turn to make policy and solidify our gains for liberty and the rule of law. I call it the great pivot. The great pivot, where we're not spending our time looking over our shoulder at our own government. We have a partner in the White House now with his administration. We have a partner, like our distinguished speaker here in a moment, our Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division, AAG Dillon, who, let me add, and some of you may know this, who spent time at Main Justice. In a moment, we're going to hear from AAG Dillon, who sits in this beautiful corner office of Main Justice on the 5th floor of the Justice Department. If you ever visit her office in the Civil Rights Division, you may not know that a few decades ago, that office was held by one J. Edgar Hoover. So the Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division sits in J. Edgar Hoover's old office. It's one of the most beautiful offices in the Justice Department. And no, the fireplace isn't a real one. It was created when J. Edgar Hoover decided if Bobby Kennedy is going to have a fireplace, by God, the director of the FBI is going to have a fireplace. It's totally a fake fireplace there. We do have a partner in the White House, and we have these fantastic allies in Washington, D.C. And more than a few of them, most of them are members of this society. They wear that tie. They view the world through the lens of one of the rule of law, not their agenda. You know, I have the privilege of watching the incredible, whip-smart attorneys in the Attorney General's office get creative as we support this administration and unwind the damage of the last administration. As you all know, it's not a flip of a switch, as the public oftentimes demands. It's much more complicated to unwind this mare's nest that was created these last few years. I'll give you an example. You know, just this week, Kentucky joined our sister state of West Virginia in leading a 26-state coalition in a comment letter to the EPA. Now, admittedly, this is where a typical audience would fall asleep. Not you, though, not this group. No one gets excited about a discussion of federal rulemaking, quite like FedSoc. Friends, we wrote a comment letter, 82-page comment letter to the EPA administrator to repeal the Obama administration's endangerment finding. The endangerment finding, it's the great white whale. It is the foundation on which so much harm has been done to our economy, particularly here in this Commonwealth, since the Obama administration. We're attacking the very root. We'll go after the branches as well, but friends, we're going after the very root of the bad environmental law that led to just a parade of horribles. The EV mandate that I mentioned, the so-called Great Green Power Plan with all of its tendrils, and even the Green New Deal itself. Attorneys general from across this country are zealously collaborating with President Trump to right this wrong, to undo this legal fiction from the Obama administration and make it harder. And this is also important because in a democracy, power transitions. But we must undo the legal fiction and make it harder for the next Democrat president to impose these disastrous regulations. Now we're just getting started. Even when we make it through the bureaucratic regulatory process, there'll be, of course, fringe groups that we'll need to fight off, and we'll be waiting to do that to protect the rule of law. Our team, our colleagues, 24 attorneys general from across the country are ready for this fight. And now, just because we're not fighting our own government anymore, what happens after the great pivot that I described when President Trump was elected? It doesn't mean that there aren't bad regulations that need to be challenged. And as a matter of fact, California still exists. And so I say that tongue in cheek, but the next fight we have in this regulatory space, as you know, is against blue states. It's against other states, California, New York, Vermont, and whether it's agricultural policy and attempting to tell our farmers how to raise our hogs, our energy producers out of New York, rest assured, they're going to receive, these industries will receive, how are you? Good to see you, a well-throated defense. We're not going to stand for coastal elites in blue states telling Kentuckians how to raise pork or how to grow crops. Now that brings me to our own governor here in the Commonwealth. We may not be looking over our shoulder at Washington, D.C. any longer, but we still need to keep an eye on this Commonwealth's chief executive. To be honest, I don't wake up most days in this job seeking to pick a fight with Governor Beshear. That's not why I ran for office. That's not the pitch I made to Kentuckians to be elected. I'm much more interested in working with my fantastic colleagues like our Deputy Attorney General, Rob Duncan, in tackling violent crime and deadly drugs. That's why we ran for this office. Violent crime and deadly drugs that plague a city like Louisville particularly. But that's the beauty of the Swiss Army knife that is the Attorney General's office. We're able to walk and chew gum at the same time, to tackle these macro policy issues, regulatory fights, while also focusing on the day-to-day challenges to Kentuckians. You know, it is a fantastic job. It's a unique role in government. I'm blessed to have this role. And perhaps the nature of this job is why the governor keeps pretending like he's still the Attorney General. I say that because I'm sure you've seen the lawsuits from blue states, from Democrat attorneys general across the country trying to stymie the efforts of the Trump administration. They read Democrat AG, Democrat AG, Democrat AG, Governor of Kentucky. He sticks out like a sore thumb as the plaintiff, as the petitioner on these efforts. And that's because in most states, including our own, it's the responsibility of the Attorney General to represent the sovereign interest. It's the role that I and our team have. Our Constitution, this isn't just words from a podium, our Constitution empowers the Attorney General to be the chief law officer of our Commonwealth. But I will tell you, in many cases, these lawsuits from the governor present a serious institutional question. The governor, we care about separation of powers. Those that sit in this room care about these issues. And the governor is encroaching on the lawful and legitimate responsibility of the office of the Attorney General. And he's doing it to score political points. So each time the governor has joined a lawsuit improperly, typically it's in some Northeast court, far from Kentucky, we filed a brief informing the court about the limits of the governor's constitutional authority. But of course, we don't have to wait for an out-of-circuit federal judge to address this for us. Last session, And stay tuned, because last session a bill was filed at the Kentucky House to limit the governor's litigating authority. The bill sponsors, you may have heard of these obscure members, the bill sponsors the Speaker of the House, David Osborne, and new, very aggressive colleague, Representative T.J. Roberts. They're not known to be shrinking violence. So with next session right around the corner, perhaps it's time we make some calls to our legislators. Now, the governor's political lawsuits are one thing, my friends, but it's unfortunately, he's also standing in the way that families of victims of crime receive the justice they're promised. And if there's nothing else you remember from my couple of moments with you this morning, I want to emphasize what I'm about to say. Earlier this summer, I asked Governor Beshear to sign a death warrant for Ralph Bays. This is a monster who brutally killed Powell County Sheriff Steve Bennett and Deputy Sheriff Arthur Briscoe 30 years ago, lay in wait with him with an SKS, and assassinated these two men wearing the badges of our Commonwealth. The lawful imposition of the death penalty is put on hold, as many of you all know, for the last 15 years. Other AGs have tried to start the process, but they've hit a wall after wall after wall. And it's the families of these victims that suffer. It's sitting with these families and reliving how every hearing, every delay is re-traumatizing them. It's tearing open the wounds of losing their loved ones, oftentimes losing their multiple loved ones in the most violent fashion. They're forced to continue reliving the worst day, the worst experience of their lives. So we've asked the Franklin Circuit Court to lift its year-old injunction. We pushed for action and we got it. The latest ruling from the Franklin Circuit Court, in our view, leaves no remaining impediment. Let me emphasize this, no remaining impediment to Governor Beshear signing a death warrant for this cop killer. We're asking the governor to live up to his word, to live up to what he has publicly said from a podium like this and fulfill his statutory obligation. We don't need a new law. We don't need a new reg. We don't need a new court order. We need a governor, ours, to follow the law. And if this governor won't do it, we will tee up the next governor to do so. Unfortunately, the violent crime, though, that took Sheriff Bennett, took his deputy, Briscoe, they're not a thing of the past, as you well know. We sit here, look around. We sit here at this amazing venue year after year, home of Kentucky's grandest event. But it's important, as I look out and see a few folks who've spent their careers trying to mitigate violence, it's important that you remember, not that far from where we stand, half a mile away, a few thousand yards, there are kids that sleep under their beds at night. There are families that put their kids in bathtubs at certain times when things get rough. Why do they do that? Because it's the safest place in their houses, a stone's throw. And this is not hyperbolic language, it's the reality of life in neighborhoods, some neighborhoods here in Louisville. That's our Commonwealth, that's our city. We talk about the rule of law, but for some of our neighbors, it doesn't exist. It's fancy words from a guy in a suit standing at a podium. As a former FBI special agent, as someone that had the privilege of being your U.S. attorney here, as the Attorney General, I don't accept that. The men and women I served with don't accept that notion here. That's why we stood up the first ever violent crime reduction team here in Louisville. This is something no AG's office has done before. We put prosecutors on the ground here in downtown Louisville, supported by investigators. Their offices loaned to us for $1 a year by the mayor of the city of Louisville and our circuit court clerk. It allows them to have 1 foot in Jefferson Circuit Court and 1 foot in federal court, cross-designated as assistant United States attorneys to get the biggest bang for our buck in the enforcement space. And if you don't follow politics, the mayor of the city of Louisville, our great partner, the Commonwealth's attorney here, remember, we don't have original jurisdiction. We have to do it in concert with our Commonwealth's attorney. Our circuit court clerk, they have a different letter behind their name than I do, than most of us do. But these are real partners. If you look at your phone, and the longer I go on, the more of you that stare at your phone and trying to escape, what you see, that darkness, that divisiveness, you would think that no one works pragmatically anymore. Oh, I can tell you, it's happening right here. You have folks rowing together that happen to have a different letter behind their name, that view the world through a different lens, but they don't in terms of mitigating violent crime. So much more to come. This is a team that has been stood up for a few months. They have 80 indictments under their belt. They're going after the most violent offenders. They're going after trigger pullers. We had a conviction, our first jury trial last week, many more to come. We offer a plea deal. If it's denied, we get a trial date. It's a hybrid model. As some of you who come from the federal system may know, this is something that's not been done before. These are state prosecutors that are assistant attorneys general, that are, the Venn diagram would be wacky with this one, that operate under the authority of the Commonwealth's attorney, that have one foot in U.S. District Court, that are able to take cases to federal district court. This is and we're limiting the number of cases. They carry a caseload more like an assistant United States attorney than they do a state prosecutor, so that we can spend more time on these matters, get better outcome in these matters. Deterrence is what we're shooting for. We're never going to prosecute our way out of this, but you're sitting in a beautiful space in a city that just doesn't have deterrence anymore. There is no deterrence for these violent acts, and brick by brick, we're going to build this back. And if he's not here yet, he should be here. Our partnership, if you haven't met our talented new United States Attorney here in the Western District of Kentucky, Kyle Bumgardner, hopefully he'll be able to join you. Make sure you introduce yourself. He's a talented man with a fire in his belly. This is the kind of partnership that's going to have an impact. Good morning. Look, I'm just the warm-up act this morning for those that are coming after you, and I'm honored to be so. I'm going to wrap up so you can get to the main course. Before I do, though, I just want to be very direct about why I'm here. I came here this morning to give you a snapshot. This is just a snapshot of the work of the incredible men and women that serve in the Kentucky Attorney General's office. Snapshot of what we're doing civilly, criminally. It's the most interesting work in this Commonwealth with a law degree. I know you know the Federalist Society attracts the best and brightest. They attract the kind of men and women that view the world through the right lens. In this room are some of the most talented lawyers in this Commonwealth. Practitioners who care, who give a damn about the rule of law. We want to serve with you to serve this Commonwealth. I'm here to recruit you. You could be the next Matt Kuhn, the next Jacob Abrahamson. I can go around the room, the next Christopher Thacker, the next Mr. Haber, the next Professor Soletto. These are colleagues. Pull them aside. Talk about the work they're doing. Ask them. Ask Lindsay about the work she does on behalf of this Commonwealth, the people she serves, how interesting it is, the culture we have. Philip Hellringer, incredible work, has done for years in the consumer protection space. And if I haven't named you, I'm just I don't want to wear the crowd out with the talent that's in this room. Pull them aside. If you've ever felt the call to public service, come work with us. Come serve with us. Don't just talk about the darkness. Don't just talk about the divisiveness. Step into an environment where we're pragmatic. Step into an environment where we're doing new things, where we're stretching, where we're using the law not only in a conservative way, but we're using the law aggressively. You pull one of these colleagues aside. Ask them how it feels to stand up on behalf of the Commonwealth. Ask them what it feels like to articulate those words. Ask our Solicitor General, Matt Kuhn, about our promise for new Assistant Solicitors General of 2 oral arguments in the first year. Jack, you've been here less than a year. How many oral arguments? 5. Firm folks, 5 oral arguments in 1 year, for what it's worth. Look, I hope you'll consider raising your hand and taking that oath to serve with us. Thank you all so much for your hospitality this morning. Thank you all those that are sitting in here who have served this Commonwealth in the past or are doing so now, either in our office or serving us in Washington with the Justice Department or the Trump administration. Thank you for your service to this nation. May God bless this nation, and may God bless our Commonwealth. Thank you so much.